Alright guys, welcome to Flabo Rihanna's MMA show. I'm your host, Flabo Rihanna, brought to you by Four Corner Sports. Alright guys, so back in the old setting, alright, vacation's over, came back from California, flew back to New York. I left California, flew back to New York, and we're back into business. I was supposed to put out a video of UFC Vegas 34 yesterday, if not Sunday, but with the way that my flight was yesterday, getting back to New York at 10:30, all right, and then was not able to settle in until about 12. It was already way too late for me to make a video, and I was already exhausted and had some jet lag, all right. And then Sunday was just a busy day, so I was packing and getting ready. So here we are. It's Tuesday night, UFC Vegas 34, the recap, and I'm going to talk to you about a couple of fights that stuck out to me. Obviously, the main event, Kelvin Gastelum versus Jarred Canonier. All right, so that was the main event for UFC Vegas 34. The co-main event, Clay Guida versus Marco Madsen. And then I'm also going to talk to you about what may possibly be the knockout of, is definitely at least in contention for knockout of the year. The matchup of Roosevelt Roberts versus Ignacio Bahamondes. All right, without further ado, I'm going to go straight into the main event. So the main event was featured of Jarred Canonier, ranked number 3 in the middleweight division, versus ranked 9 in the middleweight division, Kelvin Gastelum. So Kelvin Gastelum has already fought, I believe, twice so far this year. He has fought, Ian Heinisch in the February pay-per-view card that featured Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns as the main event. And he also had fought in the main event on a fight night, Robert Whittaker, which Robert Whittaker's original opponent was supposed to be Paulo Costa. Ironically enough, Jarred Canonier's opponent was supposed to be Paulo Costa, but it gave Kelvin Gastelum 2 months to prepare for Jarred Canonier, so and vice versa as well. So that was the main event. Good card overall, but for the main event, it's something that we kind of expected. It was going to be more of a true test to see how does Jarred Canonier handle himself in a 5-round main event, because we have seen Kelvin Gastelum go 5 rounds. We've seen him go 5 rounds with Israel Adesanya, that famous, interim title fight. We've seen him go 5 rounds against Robert Whittaker, all right? 2 of the best middleweights in the world he has gone 5 rounds with, and he is a hard guy to submit and knock out, and that's not some, there was a possibility that we were going to see Jarred Canonier utilize his power, because this guy was a former heavyweight. Then he went down to light heavyweight, and now he found his true grounding. Oh, man. He found his true grounding in middleweight. So now Jarred Canonier, last time I believe he ended up fighting a 5-round main event, had to be in the regional scenes. I believe, I can't remember exactly what fight promotion he was fighting for at that time, but it was definitely a heavyweight. But round 1, close round. I actually gave it to Jarred Canonier just because of the more volume and the punches, and also the pressure that he was able to get giving them to Gastelum. Round 2, I gave it to Gastelum. Round 3, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know round 3 and 4 were a little bit, questionable. Round 5, I gave it to Gastelum, but I had it 48-47, Jarred Canonier. I just had a feeling that Kelvin Gastelum, for some reason, he just can't defeat the top middleweights in the world. And it just seems like that's a problem. And I don't know if that's just because he has absorbed way too much damage in his career, especially at middleweight, because he's always a more undersized fighter. He's always fighting, the bigger opponents. He was undersizing. I know Robert Whittaker was a former welterweight, right? And Gastelum was a former welterweight as well. I know that was a little bit more even of a matchup. He fought Adesanya. Adesanya was a bigger man. Fighting Jarred Canonier, a former heavyweight, obviously he was going to be the bigger man. Him fighting Ian Heinisch. Yes, Heinisch was the bigger man, but Gastelum naturally has better skills, better wrestling, better takedowns, better, striking than Ian Heinisch. So there's a little more levels to this. Cannonier was able to utilize his power. I felt like in the 5th round, Cannonier did not come off strong, and Gastelum, with the large cardio tank that he has, his gas tank, it just showed that, if the fight would have went longer, it would have been more in favor of Kelvin Gastelum. Kelvin Gastelum had put out a tweet right after the fight was over saying that I believe that I won, but whatever. look, I love to see that type of, frustration from a fighter whenever they felt like they had won a very close fight. But, it was a close fight. It wasn't a robbery at all. I think what Kelvin Gastelum needs to do is I think he needs to take a step back. This is going to take him out of the top 10 in middleweight. He's probably going to fall within rank 11, 12, maybe even 13. Does he deserve to be that far? I believe so, only because of the fact that the closer he is, towards like the top echelon of middleweights, the more he struggles. And I just think that he needs to take some time off. I think that it's not because he is getting, busted up and beaten down tremendously in the octagon. I just personally feel like Kelvin Gastelum needs to take a step back, fight a Zach Cummings, something like that. Fight people like another Ian Heinisch. He might need to fight somebody like a Brendan Allen. I know he wanted to climb up the ladder, right, and fight, the winner of Strickland versus Luke Rockhold. I think at this stage right now, maybe him fighting Luke Rockhold would be an easier matchup than him fighting Sean Strickland. But that I see the days of Kelvin Gastelum trying to contend for a title are, getting further and further away from him than when he had originally fought Israel Adesanya. You saw, hey, maybe we might be seeing a top 3 middleweight, in the future, him competing with Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya's, and at that time, Paul Acosta when he was a little bit more active. So I just don't see Kelvin Gastelum fitting in there. As for Jarred Canonier, well, he's in a tough pickle because he fought somebody way behind him in the rankings, right? Just so he could be active. I know famously people were capturing saying that, after the interview that he wants to fight more often. He's broke. Now, I'm somebody that all in favor of fighter pay, but somebody that high up in the ranking and saying that they're broke, there's something wrong with that picture. It's either A, he's definitely not getting paid what he deserves, or B, this guy has terrible money management skills that he needs to start addressing, because somebody that's ranked 3 in the middleweight division should not be broke and having to use that in a post-fight interview so a larger audience can understand that, hey, that, he needs to fight more often, not because he wants to, but because he needs to. As for Jarred Canonier, there's only 2 options. A, he demands a title shot and he sits out for it. I know he kind of wanted to see, he wants to fight Israel Adesanya most likely at the end of the year. I could possibly see that happening because Izzy does not want to hang around too late, and Izzy and Jarred Canonier never fought one another, so there's that strong possibility that it can still happen. And Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya, most likely it's not going to happen up until 2022, and they want to make that in Auckland, New Zealand, or they want to make it in Melbourne, Australia. I just see it more happening in Auckland because Israel is the champ. But I could definitely see Israel Adesanya and Jarred Canonier fighting in December, maybe in the main event or co-main event, depending if they have Cyril Gane versus Francis Ngannou as the headliner for the December pay-per-view. But yeah, so I definitely see Cannonier fighting the champ, and if it's not the champ, then I see him fighting somebody, like the winner of Brunson versus Darren Till, which, it would be a great matchup to see Cannonier versus Darren Till, just because I can see, Cannonier utilizing, his striking against somebody who Darren Till, who is a great counterpuncher and just has a full arsenal, in his striking department. So that's something that I would love to see. Or if he has to fight Derek Brunson, then it's just a matter of, can Cannonier stop Brunson's wrestling, and is he able to pressure Brunson enough to tire him out? Because Brunson also has a great cardio tank. So that's what my take on the main event. I think Gastelum has to take a step back. Cannonier, he has 2 options: taking the winner of Brunson versus Till, or fighting the champ. As for the co-main event, we had Clay Guida versus Marco Madsen. Clay Guida, this guy looks phenomenal for age 39, but he ended up facing the Olympian Marco Madsen from Denmark, I believe he is. Close decision. I had it, I was leaning more on Clay Guida, but him bouncing around, I could understand why the judges ended up seeing that Madsen was the victor over Clay Guida. I think for both these fighters, Clay Guida, I would love to see him fight, a prospect, just so he could put somebody over. I don't think that he's able to hang around with guys who are trying to push themselves into the upper echelon, close to the top 15. Clearly, the UFC wants to push Marco Madsen just because, think about it, they had him in the co-main event. They're not trying to push Clay Guida. Clay Guida is in no position where he's going to be rushing towards getting a title shot. Now, Marco Madsen is officially 3-0 in the UFC. He's now 10-0, I believe, in his MMA career. With Marco Madsen, I believe it's simple. You put him up with Rafael Fiziev. Rafael Fiziev is another up-and-comer that the UFC wants to push in the lightweight division. I know he called out Gregor Gillespie, but I just do not see that happening anytime in the near future. I think that's just too far of a call-out, and there's no way that Gregor Gillespie is going to fall that back down after he ended up having a victory in his last fight. So I think Marco Madsen should fight Rafael Fiziev. Just fought recently. I mean, Fiziev really didn't call anybody out. I know he called out Hans Bula, but that's never going to happen. So I can see them two fighting. As for Clay Guida, I mean, you could fight an up-and-comer, and that's definitely going to put you up there. But going into the next fight that I wanted to really talk about, we may have seen the knockout of the year, ladies and gentlemen, just because of the fact that what a fight between Roosevelt Roberts and Ignacio Bahamondes, because this was a fight that I really wanted to see. I saw Ignacio Bahamondes, who is a up-and-comer, a Chilean, 23-year-old prospect, and Roosevelt Roberts, who at one point a year ago, maybe even 2 years ago, people were looking at him. I was like, wow, this prospect has true potential. But wow, the Chilean ended up knocking out the guy from San Bernardino, California, with the 10th, with a spinning wheel kick, the 10th time that has ever happened in the UFC history. Phenomenal stuff, because Ignacio Bahamondes wasn't dominating the fight, but he was pressuring and damaging Roosevelt Roberts. He was attacking the body, attacking the legs, and throughout the majority of the fight, he was doing a spinning back kick, but towards the body or towards the legs, all right? And then in that third round, as he was pressuring, because he was going to win 30-27, all right, as the time ticker was going down. But as it was starting to go into the 10-second mark, Bahamondes was just, making Roosevelt Roberts shift towards his left. And once he was able to make him shift towards his left, he ended up, igniting that spinning wheel kick, and it just knocked out Roosevelt Roberts out cold. It was one of the best wheel kicks I've ever seen. It reminded me of the Edson Barboza wheel kick. And I was just thinking, wow, this guy is going to be a star. The same way that the UFC was trying to push, Joaquin Buckley when he ended up doing that crazy, move that he ended up performing on Impa Kasanganov. That is the same thing that I feel like the UFC is going to try to push. I think personally, the fight that I would like to see for Ignacio Bahamondes, give him a veteran, give him Clay Guida. Clay Guida is going to want to brawl with you. He's going to go at it with you. I would love to see that matchup. Ignacio Bahamondes doesn't seem like a punk after what he ended up displaying this past Saturday in the prelims. He's going to try to attack the body, attack the legs, and Clay Guida is not going to go anywhere. He's going to be hard to stop. He's going to be hard to knock out. Let's see if Ignacio Bahamondes is able to knock him out, because he definitely has the power. He has the speed. He has the range. He has the height, the ability, the footwork. Clay Guida is going to bounce around. He's going to try to, apply a pressure towards you, and it's going to be something where it's going to have to kick in for Ignacio Bahamondes to go into a second gear to try to really stop a good veteran who's in the Hall of Fame, because he had one of the best fights that we've ever seen between him and Diego Sanchez. But yeah, guys, that's what I have to say. All right, tell me, guys, what you think. Did the Ignacio Bahamondes deserve knockout of the year? Is it at least in contention? Where do you rank your knockout of the year as of right now? Who do you want to see Marco Madsen fight? Should he fight Gregor Gillespie, or should he fight somebody like a Rafael Fiziev? And should Kelvin Gastelum take a step back, or should he just take some time off? Who should be his next opponent? And does Jarred Canonier need to fight the champ, or should he fight the winner of Darren Till versus Derek Brunson? Until then, guys, I am Flavio Rihanna. Thank you for tuning in to Flavio Rihanna's MMA show. Till then, peace, guys, and I'll see you guys at the next fight show. See ya. Have a good one.